Beyond the Bell, Bloomberg's comprehensive cross-platform coverage of the U.S. market close starts right now.
And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Scarlet Fu. We're counting you down to the closing bell. You're here to help take us beyond the bell. It's a global simulcast with Massar and Tim Stenovec in the same room at the same time for the first time in a long time.
We actually like each other.
Bloomberg.
Funny how that works.
We welcome all of our Bloomberg audience across all of our platforms here. Massar.
Yes.
Looking at a market still red across the screen, but as we were just talking about on TV, it could have been a lot worse. It looked like this was going to be an ugly day. You had significant percentage declines across the board, still in the red, but only a fraction of a percent for the major indices each.
Well said. I was thinking of, listening to surveillance this morning before the market opened. They were talking about futures. We're going to be down, and, we definitely looked a lot more negative earlier in the session. Having said that, something that has really stayed as an outperformer today is the pharmaceuticals. They're still up about 4%. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in just a moment. But you had Eli Lilly boosting its revenue guidance. You also had Novo Nordisk talking about Wegovy. And so there's been a lot of optimism when it comes to some of those big pharma names.
Yeah, like you guys were saying, it could have been a different day. I mean, the S&P 500 was down as much as 1.2% earlier in the day. The NASDAQ was down as much as 1.7 today. Scar, I'm wondering if, investors were coming in and buying the dip, or if they got a little spooked and they took a step back and said, wait a second, this, our worries are confined to one sector.
Yeah, it just looked like the bank's downgrade from Moody's was a repeat of the worries that existed in April and May, but nothing really new there. I mean, people had already kind of factored all of that in.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think what seemed to rattle the market out of that Moody's report was really kind of some of the forward-looking statements. The idea that I think what everyone thought was in the past with regards to the regional banking crisis, at least in Moody's view, they're saying still up ahead in the future. And I think that maybe is why. And also, it wasn't just the banks that got downgraded. I think it was a lot of the bigger ones that got put on watch that rattled some folks. Nevertheless, as we talk about a market that opened lower by more than 1%, and in fact, some of these indices were down 2, 3, 4% on the day. Now we're only looking at fractional losses. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down 4.5%. The S&P 500 down 0.4%. The NASDAQ Composite down 0.8%. And the Russell 2000 is going to finish out the day down by about 0.6%.
All right, and let's just take a quick look at the S&P 500 in particular. We're seeing, just pulling it up here, 153 names in the index, actually higher for the day, 349 to the downside. So we did see a bit of a clawback, if you will, in a lot of these names in that index.
All right, let's take a look at the industry groups, because when I came in this morning, it was pretty much all red. There was one group in the green, and that was the pharma stocks because of Eli Lilly. You can see how that's shifted a little bit here. Pharma stocks still at the top of the heap. They're powered by Eli Lilly. Utilities led by Duke Energy moving higher. And notable that Apple snapped its 5-day decline. So tech hardware also finishing up in the green. On the downside, you have chip makers, healthcare equipment stocks, and insurers, each off by more than 1%.
All right, so as Scarlett mentioned, pharmaceuticals really a big standout here and top among some of the major averages. Novo Nordisk, the ADRs up 17% in today's session, just finishing off their best levels of the session. Its blockbuster obesity medicine Wegovy reducing the risk of heart attacks and strokes in a highly anticipated study. So you saw this stock off and running. It also sent shares of Eli Lilly higher, which were up about 15%, top in the S&P 500, and they also remain raising their revenue guidance for the full year.
Yeah, getting some earnings here after the bell, awaiting lift. Rivian actually crossing the wire right now. The company saying that, well, its adjusted loss in the most recent quarter coming in at $1.08. The street was looking for a loss of $1.37, so at least that appears to be a bit of a beat there. Their full year production forecast now at 52,000 vehicles. Now that is slightly higher than what it had said before. It had said that it was going to produce about 50,000 vehicles this year, so a bump up of about 2,000 vehicles for the full year. Also on a full year basis, the company saying that its adjusted EBITDA will still be a loss, but a somewhat narrower loss than what it forecast before. $4.2 billion versus a loss of $4.3 billion that it had projected before. Cash and cash equivalents on the balance sheets right now, guys, $9.3 billion.
Yeah, taking a look in after hours right now, shares of the stock up by close to 2% as we speak. The company giving some highlights in its investor letter, saying that the second quarter reflects strong financial and operational progress. It's continuing to ramp production, working on efficiency, and they're introducing new technologies to enhance the customer experience.
I've seen these trucks everywhere now.
That's
like,
what
remember
said.
they were,
She
it was like a
said that
unicorn.
when she
You would
came
just see it.
back from
You see it on New York City streets?
Yeah, well, I should point out, well, I see it on New York City streets. I should point out, too, I was just in Chicago a couple weeks ago, and they were everywhere. I don't know why, for some reason, but...
I see them outside of the city, too.
You're definitely seeing that production, and just anecdotally, you're definitely seeing that production really start to kick in, or at least the deliveries, I should say.
I was out in Connecticut. Like,
Yeah.
I saw them. I was like, oh, I've never really been up close to
Yeah.
one, to be quite honest. And there they were. What's interesting is the stock's up about 2-3% here in the aftermarket. You know, we've talked about the short squeeze. Anybody who was trying to short this one, it was a really difficult name to do it, and that's something to think about. What?
I'm curious, do you think that they can kind of thread this needle? Because everyone, I think of all the sort of Tesla competitors, meaning the pure EV kind of startups, this was the one that everybody said kind of had done it right, in terms of their cost structure, their manufacturing operations, and that they can maybe replicate the success that Tesla had.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was certainly the bet when it went public, and that's why we saw what happened with the company's stock. I think the question is, like Elon Musk says all the time, it's difficult to build a car company, and an American car company hasn't actually succeeded, in half a century here in the U.S. That said,
Well, it's
legacy
a little
automakers...
easier if you don't spend all day on Twitter.
It's called X now?
Yeah. Get it right.
But the truth is, the legacy automakers too are creating vehicles that are EVs that are nothing to shake a stick at right now with the F-150 Lightning, and what Chevy's doing as well.
Well, what it comes down to right now is that Rivian is not a one-trick pony, but it's a niche player, right? I mean, they're focused on EV trucks. They don't have to worry about sedans or anything else, so they can focus on making their product really well and scale that slowly. But they don't have to worry about all these other things, including things like X.
Okay, well, we're going to keep an eye on earnings as they continue to come. We are expecting a few more, including Lyft. In the meantime, let's take a look at some of the companies that moved lower on the day today. Carol had the gainers. I'll go through the decliners right now. The regional banks taking a hit today. Fifth Third Bank down 1.9%. This after Moody's lowered its rating for 10 small and mid-sized lenders. Said it may downgrade some more major banks. Fifth Third, in fact, wasn't even on the list except for the negative outlook, and that's why we saw Fifth Third move lower. It wasn't just the regional banks, though. Bank of America fell 1.9% today, Romaine, and I know there's some more earnings coming out. Let's get
I'm going to interrupt you here. Lyft earnings crossing the wire. The 2Q numbers coming in on the revenue side, looking at about $1.02 billion. That's right on the nose of the average of analyst estimates out there, surveyed by Bloomberg. Here's the big beat, though, the big miss, I should say, on adjusted EPS in the second quarter, a loss. Excuse me, just let me correct myself. I just want to make sure I have these numbers right. They have a adjusted EPS profit of 16 cents a share. The street was looking for a loss of 1 cent a share, so a beat there as well. 16 cents a share in EPS versus the street estimates for a loss in the quarter of 1 cent a share here. Active riders in the quarter coming in pretty much on the nose, right around 21.5 million. And here's your forecast going forward. Third quarter revenue, 1.13 billion to 1.15 billion. The bottom of that range is higher than the average of analyst estimates here. And adjusted EBITDA for the third quarter, they're saying that they can post EBITDA of 75 million to 85 million on an adjusted basis, of course. That would be almost double street estimates.
That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. And remember, we just had this conversation a few days ago when Uber came out and posted a profitable quarter. And we know Uber's kind of been on that trajectory for a while. The big question is whether Lyft would keep up with them.
Yeah, well, hopefully they have something more to say when it comes to their plans going forward strategically. I just want to jump over to Take-Two because that company also reported earnings as well. For the first quarter, it was a miss, whether you were looking at the bottom line or the net bookings. EBITDA, adjusted EBITDA of $105 million, missing the mark. The consensus estimate was for $142 million. Also for net bookings, $1.2 billion, just slightly below the consensus estimate. For the outlook, Take-Two sees net bookings of up to $1.45 billion, which is less than the consensus estimate of $1.46 billion, even though for the full year it does reiterate its net bookings outlook. We know that they did not have a new video game release this past quarter, so people are looking ahead to what it says for the coming quarters.
If it's okay, I want to go back to Lyft. Just looking through the press release here, the company's chief financial officer, Aaron Brewer, saying the rideshare market is growing. We had a solid second quarter, and we have strong ride momentum going into the third quarter and the back half of the year. So there's some outlook and some visibility. Team is unified and focused on delivering great experiences for drivers and riders. But remember, they've been doing some cost-cutting efforts. They cut fares. There's a lot going on at this company, and I think expectations were low. So definitely some outperformance here.
Well, we've spent the last couple of weeks talking about returning to work, and David Risher, the company's CEO, actually calling out returning to the office and commuting as one of the reasons for the good quarter, Romaine. Between summer travel and return to office commuting, folks are getting out more every day. and loving the Lyft rideshare experience.
This actually came up during the Uber conference call because this was some similar thing. Like, is there a correlation between whether we're going back to work and whether we're using services like Uber and Lyft? And I guess Lyft is saying, yeah.
All right, so apparently we're using
Not in New York, though.
Lyft and Uber.
Too much traffic.
We're also dating, apparently, because
nobody drives.
Nobody drives.
Too
Nobody
many
drives
cars.
here. Too much traffic.
Did you guys even hear me?
We're just like doing our best.
Carol's talking about
Carol's
dating.
back.
Can we talk about dating? Bumble's
What
up
happened
about-
with dating?
Bumble's up about 3.5%.
Bumble. I didn't know you were in the market.
Oh, wow. Overseas I am. That's where they're expanding, apparently.
Wow.
All right.
All right. I hope John's
All
not
right.
watching.
Let's go. Where's Mr. Massar? Is he on the phone?
Sorry, honey. All right, that's a wrap. Our cross-platform radio, TV, YouTube, and Bloomberg Originals, folks. We call it Beyond the Bell. We will all see you tomorrow.